Hi, I'm Martin Lopez, and I'm a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Yes, y'all. It's time once again for another ResultsLeader.fm. Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. This is the only show on the internet dedicated to the men and women who are getting results for their clients. Today, we're talking to Mr. Martin Lopez, who helps CEOs and sales leaders build stronger teams and loyal customers using the curiosity theory. Let's jump in. Martin, welcome to the show. Good to be speaking with you again. Are you ready to rock this thing?
Let's do this. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. So let's give our listeners a quick win. What book have you given most as a gift?
Think and Grow Rich. That's a good one. Yeah, Think and Grow Rich has been the book that I've given out. Actually, I just gave it to my son who moved to Chicago just recently.
You gave it to your son. Is this his first time reading it? Has he dove in yet?
I don't know if he started to read it. He left to Chicago about a month ago, and the day before he left, I went and bought the book and said, here, this is going to be something that I think is going to become very valuable or be very valuable for you.
So tell me a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
I'll tell you that when I was 9 years old, my father was a carpenter. He started his own business, started to become a contractor, but I don't think he was a contractor just yet. In the morning, he would wake us up sometimes if he was running late and help us. We'd have to load his tools into the truck. And I remember one morning he woke me up and it was about 4:30, 4:45. It was really, really early. So he woke me up and said, hey, I need you to help me load the tools. And so it was dark and it was cold. I was about 9 years old. And it was kind of scary because you're going to the garage all by yourself. Like I said, it's dark and cold. And I started to load all the tools into the truck. And I was just, all of a sudden, I was just all by myself. And I just got really upset about that. And I thought it was really messed up that my father would wake me up, and poor me, right? And he'd wake me up and he'd make me do something. And I never realized I was helping him. I never realized I was helping him. So for years and years, I was mad at him. And that was really the first time I'd really got mad at him. For years, I was mad at him. And everything he would do would just be piled on top of that. And one day, I was just thinking about what had happened. And I thought, you know what? All he needed is my help. That's all it was. He just needed my help. And he said that. He said, I need your help. But my little 9-year-old mind wasn't strong enough to figure that out. I wasn't curious. I didn't know how to process stuff. So he just got mad and felt very taken advantage of. As a result, I just had been mad at him for years. And after I saw that incident, I was able to start being much better with him and more forgiving.
How'd you figure it out? What kind of work? You had to do work to get there. So what kind of work did you do to figure that out?
I had kids and I was asking them to do some stuff. When I saw them, it was kind of payback. So I was asking them to do some stuff. And I say I'd really gotten better along with my father. My father had already died by then, but I didn't get along with him like spiritually, like I still held a grudge with him. And as a matter of fact, his last 6 years of his life, we didn't even speak. And I just saw my kids. I saw that I didn't communicate to my kids what I really needed. And so what I did is I explained to them, I just said, really need your help. If you're going to help by doing this, you're really helping me out a lot and you're helping your mother out a lot. And it didn't seem to really make it better for them, but it made it better for me is what the change was. And then it made me think I need to explain it to them better so that they really understand. So after maybe a few days and I thought about that, I actually went back and sat down with them and talked to them. And they were like, yeah, Dad, we understand. We just don't like to do it, but we understand that we're helping out. I'm like, okay, great.
So how did you explain it to them? I'm curious because I'm running through this with our kid. We have one 9-year-old kid and I've had a certain way of doing it, but I'm curious how you did.
You know, I just sat down and it was picking up the dog poop in the backyard is what it was. And then my book, I talk about that. I asked them, I said, what's it like to pick up the dog poop? And they were like, wow, it just stinks. It's really bad and this and that. And I said, yeah. And I just had them explain to me everything about it. Everything about it. They just told me, the bags are small. I need a bigger bag. And it's like the shovel, and then the shovel stinks and this and that. So we just kind of went through like how to make it all better. And they were like, okay, well, they still didn't want to do it, but they were like, oh, okay. And they never complained after that. I would just say, hey, I need you to clean up the dog mess and, or take the trash out. And they're like, okay. And they just did it. But I think what it was that I understood where they were in the process. It wasn't all about like what I need. And I think that's what parents do is we tell their kids what we need. And there's nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that because there's a really good lesson to do. That's a really good lesson kids need to figure things out themselves. For me, what happened is that I had made a decision at the age of 9, and that went to into my 50s. Actually, yeah, right until 50 years old. So it was a 41-year decision that I made that really took my relationship with my father and really destroyed it.
Wow, that is incredible. I could spend the whole day right here, as you can tell.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is where it's at is that growth and communication, empathy. I used to be such a great sociopath before I had a kid, and he taught me empathy.
They sure do.
You learn.
We can ruin them or we can make them better than us. I think that's like, I don't think anything ever stays status quo. We think it does, but status quo to me is as things slightly are going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. So let's talk about investments, man. What would you say is the most worthwhile investment that you have ever made?
I would say personal development. Going to the University of Santa Monica was probably the best decision I ever made in my life. Studied spiritual psychology.
You said two things there. Sometimes I hear them together, sometimes separately. University and personal development. Are those one and the same to you, or are they two different things?
Personal development is something I always did when I was young, probably 16 years old. Like I said, my father was a contractor. So we'd go to work with him sometimes. And we lived toward the border in San Diego, down by the border. So it was middle class, kind of like maybe right in the middle of middle class. So it wasn't lower middle class, but it wasn't the top of middle class. So it's like kind of right in the middle. We would go to La Jolla. We'd go to like really Del Mar, like really, really expensive neighborhoods. He would do remodels and he would build houses. And I just saw how different people spoke, how the different people approached life, and they just were different than we were. The way that they used language was different. The way that they approached conversations was different. I just noticed that. I noticed that where I grew up, that they weren't teaching us those skills. They weren't teaching me how to get along with people. They weren't teaching me how to make money. They weren't teaching me how to buy $1 million house. They weren't teaching me any of that. They were just trying to make sure that I didn't get in a gang fight or something. It's kind of like, let's just keep these people from not starting trouble. And it was really weird. And that was my approach. And it's not to say that there weren't other people that they weren't teaching. It was just from me, from my perspective, they weren't teaching me anything. So then I made a decision that I'm going to have to learn this by myself. So I started to read books. I started to read personal development books. I think I got Think and Grow Rich at probably 17 years old. Read maybe 2 chapters. Didn't read anything much more. It didn't really make sense. Like I remember this guy goes to California and then he starts digging for gold. And then that's really interesting. It was just a really interesting story. So that started on my personal development journey. And then when I was 19, I found this place called Landmark Education, and there was this workshop. And I went and took this workshop called the Landmark Forum. And from that point on, I was pretty deep into personal development, pretty deep into reading, meditating, all that.
Is Landmark still around? Because I've heard of Landmark before.
Yeah, they are. And I loved it. And there's nothing wrong with Landmark. What I learned, I was talking to a buddy of mine that I had met at Landmark the other day. We had been friends for 30 years now. When I first did Landmark stuff, it really made a big, big difference in my life. Then I started getting real deep into it. That was really my only training. It didn't teach me the spiritual stuff. It was very much about being a human being, how to be a human being. And then, like I said, when I went to University of Santa Monica and studied spiritual psychology, that was a big change because it was able to connect the spirit with who I had built. And I had built somebody that I was pretty proud of, but I was kind of maybe cold, maybe I wasn't spiritual. I didn't really have a connection with spirit. Like I would pray, but I wasn't connected. When I went to University of Santa Monica, I had a deep, deep connection with the spiritual side of me.
I have to do this because I'm interested, and I'm going to go off script for a second. But there's a choice that you had to make. And I'm with you because I speak the way I speak because I practiced. I read, I put in the work. But where I grew up, they didn't speak like this. They didn't think like this. And so there's 2 ways you could have gone. And I'm wondering why you made the choice you made, where some people will go into the La Jolla neighborhood and be like, screw these people, the man, this, that, the other, and be like, I don't want anything to do with them. Then the other side is, well, these people are obviously doing something right. I need to figure out what they're doing. How did you pick that path?
I just liked the lifestyle that they had. I liked houses that they had. And there was nothing wrong with the house. We actually grew up in a really, really nice house. I just liked the other house. I just enjoyed it. And I'd always wanted to get better at anything I did. When I was in 7th grade, I started playing the saxophone. I saw this guy, his name was Loretto. He was the section leader. He was in charge of all the saxophones. And I thought, I'm going to take his job. And so by the time I went to high school, I took his job. And it was just, I wanted to be the best I could be at the things I was doing. I just looked around. What it was I looked around at the options that I had as a young Hispanic man living by the border, living down by the border. And the idea was you're either going to be a plumber, you're going to do some kind of trade, which is nothing wrong with that. My father made really good money. My uncles made really good money. Some of them were businessmen, most of them were in the trades. Or I can go work for the city, I can work for the county, I can work for the state. That was kind of like how we were taught how to think, kind of like, yeah, and then you're going to have kids and you're going to have a family and all that. And I'm like, well, first off, I don't want kids this early. I don't really want a family. I want to go do stuff that I want to do. There's not really the support here to do that. So I'm going to go find the kind of people that talk the language of support. And those seem to be people that didn't live in my neighborhood.
Yeah, you had up-level that environment. That's the bottom line. And you realized it. I'm with you. Let's have some fun. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
I think there's a lot of coaches. There's a lot of people that give advice. And I think that's the thing that throws me off. I was talking to a friend the other day about his program. I have a friend of mine that's building a program, and I was talking about his program because he was saying, I can do this. And I said, yes, but in my opinion, you have the superpower. And whenever I talk to you, I'm trying to learn your superpower. I'm not trying to learn the things that you do technically. I'm trying to learn those things that you're going to do where it's part of you. It's like what's built in you. And then he said, well, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do the technical thing. This is probably about a month ago that it happened. And he went and did that. And he made some money, but then he was stuck. He was telling me what he was doing. And he was showing me that he's giving everybody advice and he's telling people what to do. And it's kind of like, I find a lot of coaches that do that. And for me, it's what the curiosity theory is and how I approach things. And it's just my way. It's not the right way, but it's right for me, is to teach people how to fish rather than just hand them a fish. It's like, but based on the way that your body's built, based on the fish that you want to eat, based on your needs. It's not about me. It's really about the other person. And I think that's where people fall short, where they give advice based on their needs. I don't know if that makes a long way to answer that question.
I mean, if I were to sum it up, they're basically the solution rather than empowering the person to be their own solution. And then
Thank you.
Just
that's it in a nutshell. You answered that much better than me. Yeah.
No, but I get it. I do that here at the company. My thing is, I don't have the answer. Like, you guys got to come up, and sometimes they get mad at me. And I'm like, look, whether your answer is right or wrong, test it in the world and get feedback. And then you know how to get to the answer without me. Because I died today. We got no answers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's an ego thing. And it gets results fast, but it doesn't build people. There's a book that I want to write, and the book has to do with sales companies, sales organizations, where they'll have a big turnover of people, and then they get mad because people come and people go. They get like really, really upset because that's the way it works. And there's this company that I'm talking to. It's like, what do you guys do for the people, the kids that come work for you? Well, we pay them. Yeah, but do they leave better than you found them? I want to create a book, and I'm in the middle of writing this thing. And the book is about, what if you were to put if you had a company, let's say a sales company, or just any company, it could be Qualcomm or any company, any organization, it could be a football team. And you say, you know what we're going to do is we're going to have you leave better than we found you. So when you come work for us, that when you leave us, because we know eventually you're probably going to leave us, it's likely that you're going to leave us, we'd like for you to leave better than you found us. And it's like, why not have people just be better when they leave than when you find them?
I'm with you. I like our team to outgrow us. Like, if that's what happens, then feel like we've done something right. All right, we're about to get into the results portion of the show. But before we do that, I got to ask you, have you shared the show? If you're digging what I'm laying down here, then I want to ask you to share this show with somebody who will find it helpful. Share it on your social medias. Use the hashtag ResultsLeaderFM, and I'll be looking for you out there. Thank you. So let's talk about results. Why do results matter?
Well, they didn't matter at first because I wasn't clear. Why they matter for me now at 57 is because it's a measure. It's how I measure things. If I want to grow, then I can do everything based on how I feel. Well, I feel this way, I feel that way. And that's not looking at results. It's just looking at how I feel. When I look at results, then I can have something that's measurable. Like, I made this many calls, I closed this many sales. I lost this many pounds. I worked out at this level. All the different things you do. I'm efficient in this amount of time. It could be anything from my kids asked for help from me only 4 times this month, and I didn't argue with them a single time. It's like, well, that's a great result. Like, I didn't have to argue with my kids. That's a great result. And that's where you can build on. Results are what you build on, where you build your life on. If you don't have a result that you're looking at, then how do you measure? How do you build? What are you building on? You're building on how you feel. Well, I just feel better today. That's great. And I like to be happy and I like to feel better. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not the group of people I hang out with. We want results.
In the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
I think it was going through a divorce is what the big realizations that I came up with was the value of kindness. And it's not that I wasn't kind. I wasn't kind as an intention. I wasn't kind as an intention. So I'm going to create kindness. And about a month and a half ago, and my divorce should be final in another couple months. And I get along really well with my soon-to-be ex. And she calls me after we were talking about my son. There was something my son was moving, and she was real upset. And she calls me and says, and she's crying, and she says, "You're really nice to me. You're really kind to me." And that was an intention. It was an intention to be that way because you go through a divorce and you really don't agree on the same things. And I'm okay with not agreeing. Like I said, I didn't want to leave her worse off than I found her. And so it's like, how do I do that? It's part of this whole thing I was talking about with the company. It's like, be kind. You could start it with that. Just start it with kindness. So that was, I think, my biggest thing that I've learned in the last, and it's worked, and I have a girlfriend. I have an amazing girlfriend. There are times where I saw, oh my God, I'm going to do the same thing I did in my marriage with her. Her name's Ingrid. So I do the same thing I did in my marriage with Yvette, with Ingrid. And I would think, you know what? I've got to figure out a way to be kind in this moment. And it was one time where we broke up and we got together and had dinner. We got back together after that dinner and she was crying and she goes, "But you really hurt." And I looked at her and I said, that breaking up for you was really the kindest thing I could do, because on the other side of that, I was going to say stuff that I would have regretted. I would have done. I didn't know how to do that. Now I know how to do it, but I didn't know how to do it in that moment. It was the kindest gesture I had.
Let's talk about you for just a second. What area of your business would you like better results?
It's kind of funny. Right now at this moment is messaging. It really is. It's messaging. And I find that to be the most difficult part of what we do. And I say we, like literally everybody. How to say what you do. Like, this is what I do.
Yeah, man.
And it's like, but I do this and I do this and I do this, but I also do this and I also do this and I also do this.
It's a constant evolution, my man. I'm going through
Yeah.
it right now. In fact, look at this. I've been rewriting my messaging and I have it in front of me just so that I absorb it through osmosis, I guess. Just let it sit.
Yeah. It's evolution, isn't it? It really is. It's really cool to be the kind of person that is interested in evolving. It really is cool. I'm not a big believer in like any religion, but I look up to the heavens literally every day and I go, "Are you kidding me, God? Like, are you kidding me?" It's just like, I feel like a better human being. I feel like I'm working toward being that kind of person I'm already past the kind of person that I thought I would be. I passed that guy up a long time ago. So this is all like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? And I literally am discovering this new human being constantly.
It's an amazing journey. So what results are you most proud of?
Writing a book, I would say. People always say your kids, and kids aren't a result. My kids are, and I sent a text message to both of them yesterday, and I turned my phone off. But it was something that's like, that you're the greatest thing in my life. You and your brother are the thing I love more than anything in my life. Thank you. And I would say, if I was going to say result, is the ability to do that, the ability to tell my kids how much I love them and to feel it.
Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders who are listening to us right now?
Just stay curious. Just stay in curious. My thing is curiosity. Everything I've created is, especially in the last 10 years or so, has come through curiosity. My book's called The Curiosity Theory. So everything that I've created has come through curiosity and that ability to not think I know what's right, and the ability to be able to say something that actually took a little bit of courage, like to send that text message to my kids. Was kind of like, it's true, but it's very vulnerable. And I'm not doing it for a reason. Then I get this gift. And it's like, trust that you're supported. Trust that you are supported by the universe. And even the fact that you probably doubt yourselves, you're like, man, trust me, that doubt that you have, whatever that doubt that you have, it's simply old language that has just not been cleaned up yet. It's just old language. And that if you keep being curious and if you keep getting on the other side of it, eventually the weight will turn. You're like, the scales will turn, and you'll still see the old language, because that's just it just doesn't go away, but you see it and you're not it, and you can get to not being it quicker, and you can get to who you are quicker. This is literally everybody I talk to, and I talk to billionaires, I talk to millionaires. I talk to people that do really, really well, and I coach people that do really, really well. And they have the same struggles that you and I both have, and that the people that aren't successful yet have. It's the same thing. It's how their brain works. And curiosity is what I found the single greatest tool to get on the other side of it.
I have no doubt that our listeners are curious about getting more from you. So where can they go?
The best place to connect with me is thecuriositytheory.com. There's some links on that website. You can go to my social media. You can find me on Facebook. I do most of the stuff on Facebook. Going to my website or finding me, Martin Lopez. It's a Mr. Martin Lopez, I believe that's my handle on Facebook, and find me there. If you're a man, I have a program called Men's Breakthrough, and if you're a woman, I have the Curiosity Theory for Women. So
excellent. So
reach out.
Thank you for hanging out with us, Mr. Martin Lopez. Thank you, our dear listeners, for tuning in. Another episode is in the can. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.